and welcome to today's episode of Authentic Achievements, where it's my very great delight to be joined by the fabulous Nancy Waring. Nancy, welcome.
Thank you, Kim. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited for this conversation, and I know from our pre-chat we could get stuck in quite quickly. So before we do, let me share a little bit more about you with those listening and watching today. So Nancy is a health coach. She got a 500-hour certified yoga teacher and a former speech language pathologist with over 30 years of experience in health and wellness. Nancy's passions lie in empowering adults to embrace vibrant living through mindfulness, science-based strategies, and purposeful habits. Drawing on her own transformational journey, Nancy integrates her book's 5 pillars: breath, movement, nutrition, sleep, and purpose into her coaching and classes. Her career began in speech pathology, where she honed her skills in client-centered care, a foundation that continues to inform her personalized approach to health and happiness. Nancy's mission is to inspire individuals to reconnect with their inner wisdom and live with energy, clarity, and purpose. Wow. I mean, I don't even know where to start, Nancy, with all of that. What an amazing journey that you've been on. Could you bring it to life for us a little bit more?
I would love to bring it to life. I'll start by saying I loved being a speech pathologist. And during my time as a speech pathologist, I worked with infants all the way through hospice and end of life.
Yeah.
A lot of my time was centered with adults. And many of those adults were close to retirement age or had recently retired, who ended up with having a stroke and neurological challenges. And that's where I worked with them on language as well as swallowing. And maybe that younger self just sort of trusted that process in helping people. As I started to get older, sort of questioned, why is it at this stage in life, these individuals who have worked so hard, and many of them had a lot of money in the bank, sort of held off living their life for a future that they never had because they had a stroke. And that was just the way it seems.
Yeah. Well, that so resonates. When my dad, God rest his soul, who sadly we lost last year, he had Parkinson's and he got it at the point he retired. And you're like, right, so all that you were working for and hoping that you were going to be able to have, all of a sudden now, life's got a different plan for you. And that can be so hard, can't it? For the individual, for the family, and that readjustment into what your future's now going to look like.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry about your loss. And it's so difficult, and it changes the relationship everyone has.
Yeah.
And there was this one client, I was working in this rehab center, and for 1 week I would go into his room. He had had his right leg amputated from type 2 diabetes complications and a major stroke. My goal was to see if I could get him to eat or drink, because at that point he was tube fed. And twice a day I'd go in, and I lovingly refer to him as Charlie. And only one time in that 1 week, 10 sessions, did he open his eyes. Wow. And it was there in his room that it was like this epiphany came down that this didn't have to happen. And it was because of the fact he was working so hard, taking care of his family, and he didn't take care of himself. And over years and years, he ended up being obese and having high blood pressure, the diabetes. And it was like the idea, like he kept saying, honey, one day we're going to travel. We're going to live our life. Right now, I'm just working really hard. And then poof, the dream was gone. And it was in that therapy room. It was like, whoa, I've got to make a change. I've got to prevent this. So that started me on this journey from the therapy room to becoming a health coach, starting out as a personal trainer, believing it was all about exercise. But I quickly found out a lot of people don't like exercise. So now I had to find another solution to the problem.
I love that.
Where it started.
I love that you kind of like, you had your own epiphany, but then you've had to go on a journey to really unpack that epiphany and go, okay, so I know it's about prevention, not cure. I know it's about making a change earlier on, but actually sometimes when we're trying to find our route to that purpose, it doesn't quite go as smoothly as we planned, did it? It's like you've had to evolve that. So how did you go on that evolution?
Well, part was my own journey. I ran my first marathon at the age of 47.
Wow.
And at the time when I signed up for a marathon, I wasn't even sure of the distance. So there was a point of trust in this feeling that I needed to make some shifts in my life. When I crossed that finish line, I realized I could do anything. So that started me on this intense fitness journey of exercise. And I got really fast. I got super skinny. Even have a picture behind me to sort of remind me of that self that I created just for my obsession on fitness. But I was destroying myself inside. And even ironically, my fastest half marathon, which is 13.1 miles, I had cramping in my leg. I had a beer. And then when I started to run, that was after the race, not during the race. And then when I started to jog back to my car, my body just cramped up one of my legs. I fell, I tore my labrum. Now I had an injury. I can't run. So what is this fitness? So I had those two things helping me with fitness, staying as a speech pathologist, but really, what is this thing? And I thought it was all that exercise, having this six pack, being super skinny. In the process, I had inflammation throughout my body. I later learned. Yeah. And I was making myself exhausted when I wasn't, engaged in the exercise. So now all of these little things started to happen. And my question was, could my injury have been prevented? A few years later, I got involved with actually a company there in the UK called DNA Fit, had my DNA assessed. I'm like, oh my goodness, our body leaves clues in our DNA and in our cells. So I could have prevented it because of this inflammation. I found out why I could run. And that just started me again on the journey to further find that deeper dive of why and the uniqueness within each of us. Yeah. We're living in a world where there's so many great plants. You should do keto, you should do intermittent fasting, you need to do HIIT training, you need to do yoga. And we grab at whatever we're seeing in the media, but the person we're not connected with is within. So that ended up taking the journey in my book, The Vibrant Sage, Arousing Energy for Health and Happiness. The idea of a vibrant sage, which is ultimately my call to action, is to trust your inner wisdom. Yes, we've got professionals and people who can help us, but if we're not feeling right, then chances are we need to make some shift for us, and each of us has a gift inside to give to the world, to give to our family, give to our friends. And as we get older, it sort of evolves and we sort of blossom, and we actually owe it to the world to feel our best, to be our best, to give those gifts. That sage wisdom comes within to give without.
I love that. It's almost like, there's so many things we can do, and we try so hard to make everybody exactly the same, don't we? And yet we're not. We're all unique. We're all uniquely us. It's the reason my logo is a fingerprint, because the one thing that is also unique about us all is our fingerprints. But we get lost in this desire to fit in, and also to well, I know certainly I sometimes I'm definitely guilty of this, to ignore my inner wisdom, particularly if it's different to anybody else's. Come on, I'm probably just a bit odd. Shouldn't think that, instead of stepping in and embracing it. And it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, which is Pablo Picasso, who said that the meaning of life was to find your gift, and the purpose of life was to give it away. And it sounds like that's really kind of what you're doing with kind of the work you're doing. And I'd love to know more about those 5 pillars and how one, you found them, and then how they connect with each other.
Okay. Well, I'll start. It was almost 4 years ago exactly. We were in the middle of COVID, and I felt I hadn't touched enough lives. So I started to write my book. And while the book has evolved, and you're a writer, it's never the way it starts.
No.
But a weekend of just throwing things up on the wall, literally ideas, the 5 pillars came to me. The first is breath, because their breath is our life force. And if anybody questions that, try to hold your breath for 3 minutes. Please don't do it. But the chances are you might pass out. Our breath truly is. And I discovered as a speech pathologist, not that the power both for speech as well as for even helping to reduce some anxiety and stress. And in my book, I tell a story about someone who had a very shallow breathing pattern and a lot of problems. So I recognize when we have our breath, we have our life. Our breath can give us information about how we're feeling. When we're stressed, tense, we tend to have a short breath versus taking in a deep breath to calm our sympathetic nervous system. So breath is number one. If you're alive, you've got your breath, you can breathe in and breathe out and feel, you know what? I've got another moment, I can make a change. The next is movement. And I say it's not about the gym. Now, I like the gym. We have to recognize all living things are moving, they're growing, and we need that for our strength. So the call to action is to listen to the body, but we do need to work our heart. We need to have strength, some flexibility. As we get older, even that balance is just so important because so many factors are coming in. And if we're giving our gifts to the world, we have to tap into what energy helps create energy within the body and in the cells. So finding what works. Nutrition. It's about what we eat. And everybody's telling us what to eat. And we have to recognize that through our life, through our journey, it changes. What we ate when we were young, we sure can't eat now. At least I can't eat it now. I don't know about you, Kim.
Oh, yeah.
Could you imagine? And to recognize and to feel what it's like to eat something healthy, what's making you feel good, and our numbers, the blood work, the things our doctors test us for, gives us some information. I also discuss the gut, because we need proper gut health. If our gut's not working properly, breaking down the food to go into our body, and I won't go too geeked out on this, it's why are we eating it? So ultimately it becomes this alchemy of all of these chemicals we eat, the food that we eat, but then to recognize maybe some of our own little prejudice we have about food, and even how other people eat. Each of my chapters, I have an expert. And in nutrition, it was somebody who I met at a health conference, and I was grossed out by his plate of meat. And then he told me why he was a carnivore and why it worked for him. So I'm like, "Ooh, Nancy, you got to stop having these judgments. When we have you should be a vegan, you should, whatever it is." But the food is to the nutrients for your body. It's not about just the calories. I got these calories in, calories out. It's not about that. So I discussed that. But ultimately, it's about tapping in. How are you feeling? Are you feeling energized? Is your energy sustained? Or is your belly feeling distended? Do you have a lot of gas? That's telling you it's not right. So just listening to that and recognizing if at one point in your life it's good, it doesn't mean it's good at another.
Yeah. I love that, because we evolve and change, don't we? And we need to therefore evolve all parts of us to adapt to that that next chapter, I guess, that next element of our life. And we do, and we chatted before we came on the show, didn't we? We do leap to judgment instead of being curious. One of the things I did with my little girl, she's 8, and we did a family mission statement for a couple of years ago now. We decided to really sit and think about how did we want to live our life? And we came up with, we wanted to live a life of passionate curiosity and to pass our thoughts, words and deeds through the lenses of, is it kind? Is it honest? And does it add value? And if we couldn't say yes to all three, we shouldn't do it. Because I was saying to me, like, we're so quick to label things. We're so quick because we want to feel right. Because we don't want to be wrong, do we? Because that'd be awful. I mean, it's dreadful to be wrong. Heaven forbid that we were wrong and we learned something. But I love that actually in what you're teaching, you're asking us to be more curious. to ask ourselves better questions. Would that be right?
Yes, that is perfect. Even with the other, with movement, even the breath, that curiosity.
Yeah. Well, because it's telling you constantly, isn't it, from what you were sharing? If we're being too low, our body's giving us a warning. If we're feeling uncomfortable in some way, our body is giving us a warning. And one of the things I've learned in life is if you don't listen to the warning, it will repeat the message. Like, hello, you will stop and you will take notice. Is that fair?
Completely. That was how I was with the running.
Yeah.
I kept cramping. There were times I was almost falling asleep at work. And then it's even on that run, the cramp. And then it's like, Nancy, nope, here, we got to take you down completely.
It so resonates. I remember a few years ago now, and I was trying to juggle everything, big job, being a mum, being a single mum. And I remember I got a cold. At least that's what I thought I had. And everyone at work was like, I think you're really poorly, you should take some time off. I was like, it's ridiculous, just a cold. I'm just a bit older, and things just take a little bit longer to get over, but it's absolutely fine. So that was on the Friday. So imagine how embarrassing it was on the Sunday night when I had to ring them from intensive care and say, won't be in work tomorrow because I've got double lung pneumonia. They were like, cold then, is it, Kim? I was like, no, okay, it's not a cold. I appreciate that. But it was that real moment of you're not listening. And now it's a great pointer for me to reflect when I start to feel run down, to remind myself to not ignore that sign, not ignore that warning, to go, actually, unless you take a moment now and breathe and look after yourself and do some self-care, you can push yourself further, you can, but look at where you may end up. And the impact that would have is much greater on my family than if I just said, do you know what, we're gonna have a movie day on Sunday because I just need to rest. But you almost have to sometimes have gone through that, don't you, to have recognized the importance of actually taking note.
That's why it's called sage wisdom, because we've learned over time from those experiences. And like with what you were talking about, that may have happened different times, even in the course of your life, where you didn't listen. Oh, yeah. And now it just culminated to that. But now you're okay. Now I know I've got to listen to my body. Yeah, and again, that's where the breath can come in, to just take that breath in and reconnect, like, really, how am I feeling? And in 30 seconds, 15, you can get an idea. Whoa, like maybe I feel dizzy, or I feel tingly, or I feel sore. Maybe it's, oh my goodness, I can't breathe as deeply. So now you've connected, and now there's some information that you may or may not use. You said something earlier, a few years ago, I used to say we have lessons and we have wins. So we can figure it out. It's sort of that lesson and learn. And our body does let us know when it breaks down. And my fourth pillar just is sleep and the power of sleep. And it was something that different people would tell me. They sacrifice their sleep. They have to do this and they have to do that. And one day they'll catch up on it. But really, sleep does make a huge difference in the energy that we have. And in the book, I discuss that. And I give the idea of when you're sleeping, it's like all of these processes are at work in our brain, sort of organizing everything that's happened through the day. It's our time to declutter, like cleaning house happens in our body, in our sleep. And if we can recognize that, there's that value, so that when you wake up, you're feeling more vibrant and more alert. I think most of us will agree, when we're feeling energetic and we have to push through, there's a problem or an issue, it's a lot easier than when we're tired or we lack that energy. And now maybe you're pushing through, but you're not going to push through as effectively as you would have before, with the grace, with the strength, with the momentum even.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because when we feel tired before we even start, then the problem seems much worse, doesn't it? It seems even more unsurmountable because we were already running on empty. And then you've got this, and I see this with kind of clients all the time, it's like if you're always at 100% or 95, you're not giving yourself much room as contingency for life's little plot twists. And life does love to give us a little plot twist along the way, and because that's what we're here to do, isn't it? Is
Right.
to grow and develop and learn things. But the plot twist never comes when you're at your most relaxed, like everything's going swimmingly. Now we go. Often they layer on, don't they? So being able to really understand your body and be listening to it, to get those early warning signs of where actually elements of it need a bit more care, a little bit more attention, it is the best way you can invest in yourself, isn't it? Is to really start to trust that actually the person that knows you best is you.
Right. And trusting that person, again, finding that inner wisdom and being okay with just authentically who you are and giving that gift.
Yeah.
And when you're well rested, now you have better food choices.
Yeah.
When we're tired, we tend to have those carbs, and not even the good carbs. You're not going after a carrot as much as you might be going after a donut or a scone or your movement. If you're tired, you really don't want to exercise because you're using your reserve just to get through what you have to do throughout the day. In that breath, forget that. That's often sacrifice there too. Just sort of moving, like envisioning, like through quicksand or some mud, some energetic thing, just keeping you from just going easily and giving your gifts.
I think it's one of those we take it for granted, don't we? Often, and I've been asthmatic since I was 4, and that really helped me not take it for granted, because there are moments when you do have to listen to, you have to understand that breathing and spot when it's telling you that there's a something else. And I'm very fortunate and haven't had any problems with my asthma for years now, but it did make me conscious about it in a way that probably I wouldn't have been had I not had a problem with it. But it is about, I guess it's about being present and intentional, isn't it? It's about really being in the moment. And yes. I often find myself going, well, you're not in the moment, Kim, at the minute. but take yourself and then center yourself again and kind of go, okay, well, I caught myself not in the moment, so that's okay. I can be kind to myself and go, it's all right. that's okay. But now actually I can be more present. So for the people listening and watching, how can they get started? Is there some simple tips you can share with us around how do you start to be conscious about these 5 pillars and intentional about what you're choosing to do with them?
That's why the breath is number 1. Just connect with your breath. How are you feeling? Do you feel that expansion in your belly, in the heart space? When you breathe in, you can even try it right now. Just try breathing in through the nose if that's comfortable. Can you feel sort of that rise of the chest, again, that heart space, and just soften out?
Yeah.
And just from that can give you an idea. And I tell people who might say, I just don't have time. I said, you go to the bathroom, you go to get a cup of coffee, those little breaks in the day. So during those breaks, taking that opportunity to breathe in and to breathe out. And when we're conscious of our breath, we're more present. You're not taking a nice slow breath thinking, oh my God, I got to get this done and that. It just sort of gets like slowing down a little bit. I'm feeling like the metaphor of a race. You're running a race, but then you might pull back just a little bit just to regain your momentum. And that's where that breath, or taking a little bit of water, listening to the body, getting up and moving. Even again, my official business is called Fitness at Work. And I would tell people who say they have no time, again, use that time you go to the bathroom, look at that as your movement, just changing your position in space instead of sitting down. Or instead of just standing up if you're at a standing desk, finding ways to integrate little habits that ultimately make you feel good. So tapping into how it makes you feel. When I would do workplace wellness, they'd often have donuts. And I would know that probably everybody would be very tired in about an hour because of what it does to the system. So just becoming a little bit of curiosity for a week. Do what you always do and just notice when you might be lacking in some of that energy or when you're not quite feeling right. And think about, could it be the breath? Maybe a little bit more movement, nutrition, maybe it's the sleep. And the last one is purpose. And I have purpose as number 5, because that's the bookend. When we have a purpose, a why so much greater than ourselves, it helps to anchor us going, you know what? I better take care of myself. So I'm there for the world. I'm there for my family. And to recognize each day is a gift. It's very brief, whether you live a day, 100 days, 100 years, and tapping into that place. That's where purpose comes in. And it doesn't have to be a purpose of something grandiose. It could be just being the best parent to their child and being authentic at that time, or to be your best for your employees, those people that you lead. But ultimately, you have to be your best for you so you can bring out what is unique about yourself with that grace and calm, and combine what we do physically with like that emotional place where we want to be to help drive us.
It does. Makes total sense. It reminds me of the one thing I say to my little girl all the time is the only goal in life, is to be a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday. Not of anybody else, not of anything else. Just be the best you that you can be, and take those lessons, take those learns, and tomorrow be an even better version of you. Because I think once we go inward, once we recognize those parts, that's when we really find that greater purpose, and that gives us the impetus to kind of keep going. Nancy, you've already shared so much great insight, but could I ask you, if you had to go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
To trust myself more, to use my voice, because often I trusted others more than myself, like they would know better. And that's what I would tell her. You don't need to know the whole path. But if you're taking one, you don't. Life's a wonderful journey with twists and turns that are just amazing. But as long as you're moving forward, you feel good about those steps, do no harm. Have that curiosity and just know that there's this wisdom within, and a universal wisdom that will help guide you as you move forward. And when there are obstacles, well, those are lessons that there need to be some changes. Don't get angry with yourself, because I would get frustrated and try to push through, and then I really get sick and have problems. So just to my younger self, you're on the right path. Trust yourself. You're just perfect the way you are, and you're growing and you're changing, and embrace that.
Oh, I love that. What great advice, because I think it is that whole everything in our life is a lesson, a blessing, or both. In those moments I don't feel blessed, I look for the lesson, and the blessing's right there in the thing that we need to learn. So I love that advice around just trust yourself, and trust that everything you need is already within you, and when you look for it, you'll find it. Nancy, I could chat to you all day, I'm conscious of time. So how can people get in touch with you, and who do you help?
Who do I help? I help individuals, usually older adults, but right now my clients are 30 and above, who really want to make a change. They've decided that they really do have gifts to give. Most have a belief in God, and they recognize they have to take better care of themselves and tap into that so they can give to the world. And each person I work with, it's very tailored to whatever their needs are. And it is simply going one step at a time. We have some end goals, but sometimes that end goal might change.
Yeah.
Depending on that journey. And I do use those 5 pillars, and we look at those as your guiding light. But ultimately, my ideal client wants to find out who they are, because I help bring that out, versus telling them what they have to do. Which is important. A lot of people want to be told what to do. And someone who's a professional, who's educated, who wants to understand the why as well, and to harness that is sort of that ideal client. Someone who wants to optimize their health, who wants to tap into that inner sage, and help bring that out.
Amazing. So I just love what you're doing, and the fact that you're helping people really do that journey to themselves so that they can actually shine their light brightly on the world, which I think is what we're all here to do, is find our light and shine it brightly. So Nancy, thank you so very much for coming on. All the ways to get in touch with Nancy will be in the show notes below. So if you didn't have a chance to pick any of that up, please just look at the notes below. Nancy, it's been an absolute privilege. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Kim. It's been a privilege for me. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And to everybody listening and watching, I hope you found it as informative, inspiring, and action-provoking as I have. And until next time, take care.